Hey everyone, today for another vlog, and today I want to talk about widespread powerlessness. So I think the title is quite explicit, like this widespread phenomenon where we just are live in a state of complete and utter lack of agency right in our own lives. It manifests in many ways. So the first one, the most immediate one I can see is the fact that uh, living in the modern world is completely dependent on external institutions. So for example, people need cars to go to work, which is already a form of powerlessness. Right? Like the fact that there are no like j- the fact that like lifestyle within a walking distance, or like the fact that cycling is not really viable in many parts because it's so like not the roads are not made for it. The fact that you can't just like live in like a walking distance of your job is already a form of powerlessness, right? Because it means that you're already dependent on a car, which is a form of technology that you don't really have like control over, and you need like external institutions or like people to fix it, and you need to pay money over it and so on. That's already a pretty big form of powerlessness if you ask me. But in general, just jobs are a massive one. But the fact that you're not really in control of the job you have, like especially of your schedule, right? So like it always made me laugh when I like read economic textbooks, and they talk about how um, workers get on like the work market, right? Like they exchange their work in exchange for money, and the way they make it sound like it's it's a very fair market where there's a the demand and supply going on like in products, except like it's complete bullshit. It's not like how it works at all. Because if it was like a demand and supply type of thing, then most workers would be able to decide how many hours they work, right? Like to me, that's at least that's how I think about it. But the fact that we don't is quite clear that it's not a fair situation at all. Um, and I've talked about it in a previous vlog, I think. I don't know if I made a vlog about it or not in this channel, but I've certainly made many tweets about the fact that like the 40-hour work week makes a huge difference in your life. Yeah, I call it the trap of the 40-hour work week. It was 22nd vlog on the previous period, and it's a huge form of powerlessness. The fact that it leaves you with too little time. It feels like to do things when you're done with work, like not enough energy, not enough time after your day, and everything sort of gets crammed into your weekend. And it is a pretty big form of powerlessness, especially because like most jobs are not not enjoyable, and changing is really difficult. Changing job is difficult because we live in a specialized, even I would even say hyper specialized society. So there's like to some degree it doesn't to some degree specialization is useful even for the individual, but I draw a line with like hyper specialization where an individual is not even able to like meet its own basic needs uh, through like local you know through like a local means, right? So the fact that you're completely dependent on external institutions that don't really have an incentive to care about you to fulfill your basic needs, that's a very different uh, quality of life that results from that. Because when you externalize things such as health, or like those basic, or like relationships and all that, to institutions, well, they don't really have an incentive to care about you. So if you have like a family member or friend who makes food for you, then of course they will, because they care about you, they will of course make sure that it's good for you, that you will enjoy it, and because they know about you, that will be quite that will be on their mind. But when you're dealing with something that is just something you buy on in a market, like just but like, I mean like a supermarket or whatever, like there's no like incentive for the supermarket to give you food that is healthy, wholesome, that you will enjoy and whatever. Like I mean, enjoy is one part that is an incentive. Healthy is not really incentive though, because the repercussions will be so far down the line that their involvement in all that is completely like externalized. They're completely away from that. So yeah. So basically, the what I'm saying in all that is that we live in such a complicated society that the sense of power individual agency is really, really, just it's basically non-existent, right? So other examples include the news and all the fear mongering going on the news. I think that's a huge part of like powerlessness for a lot of people as well, right? So the fact that it seems that the major global events influence us, but at the same time we don't really have any agency of it. So anthropomorphic climate change or whatever warfare is going on, or the development of like civilization risk-inducing weapons, such as nuclear weapons, which have already been made. Right? So nuclear weapons, and then artificial intelligence, drones, whatever biological weapons are developed. I don't know. All of these are like completely out of the agency of the vast, vast majority of people, and yet they are real and they are happening. And this is yet another form of powerlessness. And I could give more and more examples. I think you get the point. Um, you know, all of these are can only happen in a technological society, but that's that's another discussion. But the consequences for the individuals are quite clear. People feel powerless, and what does that result in a daily life? Well, it seems to me like a lot of power dynamics in like more in like individual life are really downstream of that. The fact that you have like abusive relationships, the fact that you have like bullying in school. I think in one vlog I said that bullying in school is downstream from the bullying of adults onto children, and I still stand by that. Children are, in my mind, the most oppressed group of people in society. But the reason why no one really thinks about that is because, in general, people don't really think about children, which is probably one of the most fucked up thing about society. But that's another subject. And yeah, just a lot of like bullying at the individual level that happens like between individuals. I think a lot of it is due to just the fact that the collective, in a way, bullies people into submission and makes them feel powerless to change their life and just live the life they kind of want. And yeah, the reason I'm thinking about this is because I'm reading a book about it's a very big book, which is I've probably been talking about it for in many other vlogs. It's a book about chakra system for all things. As someone who grew up in like a very material paradigm, I was never really religious. Although I've never really been anti-religious either, right? But quite a material world I live in. The westernized world is obviously very material. A book about chakras is like the last thing I would expect to read and to actually enjoy. And I realize it's probably been one of my most influential books in my life, honestly, because it really emphasizes like the importance of the body and the importance of the body as a way to like listen to the imbalances in your own inner system, you could say, right? Not just the body, but like emotions and mind, and how it relates to society as well. And that's really interesting. And the third chakra is about power. So it's the third from the base of the spine. So the first one is the base of the spine. That's about survival. The second one is about the sexual organ. That's about sexuality and pleasure. And the third one is the solar plexus, so roughly the belly. And that's about power. And the reason why I think about it a lot is because the main form of tension I feel in my body is all in the belly. And I think I made also a vlog about that. I'm not sure. Like belly tension or whatever. I don't think it was a very memorable one in my mind, but yeah, unknown belly tension. And yeah, just I mean, I have read this book before. I mean, also I have like passed through the chakras before. I know what they're all about. But I've never really gone in depth, right? So I know that the belly is associated to power, and I know that in my life, I feel very powerless a lot of the time. But like, it's insights have this like certain quality of like aliveness, what like inert versus alive ideas. I don't know if it's something I've talked about, but like it is one thing to know that feeling powerless manifests in the body through the belly, but it's another thing to like really see it in yourself, or like just really feel it and really viscerally feel it and see it in your own life. And it's like yeah, it just makes me think of like how many things this influences, right? So as I've said about like the bullying between people and so on, and the power games that people play. So maybe I could give an example of power game. At work, there are a lot of like power games and like or like people pretending to be smart and all that. Like like the Joker line about everyone wants to control their own like bubble or something. Like everyone wants to. Yeah, I feel like that's kind of like the repercussion of powerlessness, is that people just like kind of overdo it in the other direction, and they sort of like have to play this game of you know pretense of power, of pretense of control, exerting power, just for the sake of exerting power, not because it's actually useful, but just simply because they're so powerless that they they need to feel that. So another example besides power games at work, where it's like people just wanting to seem smart, or like on the internet as well. Obviously, people really want to be smart, to be seen as smart. I like the teachers who really just want to, yeah, just show show children and students how they are the ones in charge. Um, I don't know how it is in other countries, but like in my country at least, being a teacher is not really a glamorous life career. Like it's more like the type of thing that people do because they don't really they haven't really planned anything in their life, and so it's just like that type of thing, right? So it's not like a super, it's not like the type of career that someone would like uh be someone who's super like ambitious and driven would find themselves into. Although I'm sure there's some people who genuinely care about teaching. I've had some pretty good teachers uh in my life, but those were the exceptions, right? The majority of them were not really interested in being good teachers because you know, they were not conscious in anything. I mean, the vast majority of people are not conscious in the first place. So, but yeah, just just they were just there to just give the lesson and whatever. And but some of them were just seem to really be, I don't know, seem to really want to exert power, like to really show, that they were the ones in control and whatever. It's kind of a, I don't know, it's one of those really unpleasant memories from childhood. It's just I'm really glad I'm out of school, right? Because even in university this happened, and it was quite I don't know. In a way, it felt really shitty to be in that thing, like to just have a teacher who's really unpleasant to be around. Sometimes it's kind of sad that like this is the level of human interaction we're at. The fact that um, seems like people are just creating abuse over and over, like they're feeding the cycle of abuse over and over, and just wanting to like exert dominance over others, which creates like a very, very shitty environment to be in, right? So like people who believe that the world is a zero sum game, it's kind of like a self fulfilling prophecy in a way. Like the more people believe in it, the more it becomes true. And I feel like I'm not really interested in that worldview anymore. I mean, I think I've never been interested in that worldview, like wanting to be at the top of the the pyramid or whatever, because it's such like a bullshit assumption in the first place that this would be a desirable thing. But yeah, the more I grow up and reflect on the world, the more I'm really at odds with its values, and one of them is just this entire like power game going on, and it's something I'm not interested in. And there are many power games, but I don't know, not sure there are many that come up still. Like the internet is full of them, obviously, which is but because I don't really stay on these parts of the internet, I don't really, I don't know, I don't really have many examples, but yeah. So that was about everything I have to say. I think it's kind of slowing down for me, so I'd rather just stop right now. Yeah, powerlessness is it's a pretty widespread thing. Yeah, so thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.